I do not know where to begin with Stranger Things Season 3 hitting Netflix just a few days ago. The Duffers promised that this season would be bigger and darker than ever, and I think it's fair to say that it lived up to those expectations. But there's just so much in this season to question, dissect, and analyze, like what happened to the Mind Flayer, what's next for the Hawkins family, and of course, that heart-wrenching yet suspicious ending with Hopper. All that and more coming up, because today, I review, analyze, and theorize on Stranger Things Season 3.
Happy 4th of July!
Hey everyone, isn't it sad how after a year and a half of waiting, you finished the show in 8 hours? And although Season 4 is basically confirmed, we'll have to wait another year and a half for that as well. But anyway, this video will be broken up into a few different parts, my short review of the season, analysis of some of the most intriguing aspects, and lastly, some theories of what's to come, including me attempting to answer some unanswered questions from Season 3. If you'd like to skip the review and go right to analysis, you can go to the time frame on your screen right now. So let's get right into it, and of course, major spoilers for all of Season 3. So as a whole, I thought Stranger Things 3 was very good. Not average, not excellent, but somewhere in between. Something I didn't really share to viewers in the lead up to the premiere was that I actually didn't have high hopes for the season. This was mainly because I was afraid that the show was going to become too unrealistic and gory, which I thought it partly did, but not to the extent I was bracing myself for. The first 4 episodes had me really excited and drawn in, as the show did exactly what I wanted it to with the Soviet Cold War storyline. But just like I imagined, the season took a turn for the worse in the second half, with a greater emphasis on violence and gore, as well as a less simplistic plot. Stranger Things is a show that survives and thrives on character development and interaction, plus creepiness and mystery from the sci-fi elements, and I felt that Season 3 definitely didn't do as well as this as Seasons 1 and 2. We've come so far from Joyce attempting to find Will in the Upside Down, so far from Bob's underground map, to the point where the show is sacrificing some of its simplistic creepiness for humongous monsters and battle scenes. In fact, we barely get to see or hear about the Upside Down throughout the whole season, unless you count Eleven's beach exploration. And maybe I'm biased since Halloween is my favorite holiday, but I thought October was a much more fitting time of year for the show, and setting Season 3 in the summer withdrew some of that true mystery and creepiness. Something I also wanted to touch on was the dramatic increase in characters this season, and how it affected everyone else. Will seemed to have absolutely no role besides rubbing his neck raw, and as a whole, the characters were sectioned off pretty severely. I absolutely loved the quartet of Steve, Robin, Dustin, and Erica, but didn't like how separated Jonathan and Nancy were from the others for most of the season. So to wrap up this review, I would rate Stranger Things 3 below both Seasons 1 and 2, my rankings probably being 2, 1, 3 at this point, but I will say that the third season still exceeded my expectations. The whole concept of the Flayed coming together in blob-like fashion and forming the monster was extremely clever, the humor was generally very good, and of course, the big addition of the Soviets exploring the Upside Down in Hawkins gave me such satisfaction, and gave the season a true heartbeat. The visuals and effects were eye-popping and amazing, and the music was better than ever before, both of these making the show a cinematic experience to enjoy. So that's my quick review of Season 3. People seem to disagree about their rating of it, some say excellent, others subpar, but overall to me it was between the two. But let's move on to some of the most intriguing aspects of the season, starting with that dramatic ending. Is Hopper still alive? Yes, he almost certainly did not die when the gate was closed. We don't see his body or any remains when the camera flashes back to the spot where he was standing before the blast, and we all know to doubt character deaths if we don't see a body in shows like these. But if this is true, then how on earth did he survive the explosion? The only possible explanation is that he jumped into the gate right after Joyce took her eyes off him, meaning he would be trapped in the Upside Down, with no current openings that we know about. This would be a very logical path for the writers to take, because it would set up an awesome Season 4, in which the characters would go to the Upside Down to destroy the Mind Flayer for good, and potentially find Hopper towards the very end. But this leads us right to that juicy post-credit scene in Russia, where we see a prisoner being fed to a Demogorgon. we learn that there's an American in one of the cells, leading many people to believe that it's Hopper, who, having survived the blast, was captured by the Soviets. I strongly disagree with this notion, because it's just not something the Duffer Brothers would do. The whole thing is much too obvious, between not showing Hopper's body to pointing out that there's an American being held in Russia just 15 minutes later. Stranger Things is a show that keeps its secrets and doesn't give anything away too easily. The writers want you to think that Hopper's alive and behind that prison door, and while I do think he's alive, I severely doubt he's behind the door, meaning that a different American is. Dr. Martin Brenner fits this role pretty perfectly. In the last episode of Season 1, we saw Brenner get attacked by the Demogorgon, but no proof of his actual death. It makes a lot of sense for Brenner to be hiding in the Upside Down up until around 1985 when the Soviets came into Hawkins and captured him while searching. Remember, Brenner would have been a wanted man in Hawkins after the lab team was discovered and exploited, so he could have easily hopped into one of the portals that opened around the school and stayed in the Upside Down for a couple years in hiding. There also aren't really a lot of options for who could be in Russia besides him and Hopper, whom I don't think it is, or I suppose Mayor Klein, but I doubt he'll be returning. Another huge point I want to get to is what happened to the Mind Flayer at the end of the season. The gate is once again closed and Billy and the Blah Monster are obviously dead, so what's the Mind Flayer's state right now and what's its next plan? Well, the Mind Flayer is still safe in the Upside Down, but yet again doesn't have an entry point to Hawkins anymore. In terms of what its plan will be to infiltrate Hawkins yet again in Season 4, I think there's always the possibility of Eleven opening another gate using her subconsciousness, like in Season 1, or maybe the Soviets will open something up again, or even more intriguingly, maybe the Hawkins crew will purposely go into the Upside Down for something. That could be necessary to find Hopper, but I'm honestly not sure. What do you guys think? It just seems inevitable that the characters, especially Eleven, will have to travel to the Upside Down to destroy the Mind Flayer once and for all. In terms of how to defeat it, there's Eleven's powers, but I doubt it would be that simple. The show does keep reminding us, though, of how much these creatures fear the cold, so that could definitely have something to do with it. This could take place in Season 4 or 5 if they make one. Another question I received was, how did the Soviets find out about the Upside Down in the first place? There are a couple options for this, one of which is that the Soviets experimented with telepathic spying themselves, and consequently opened a gate. Another option is that they heard about the Hawkins lab, went to investigate a possible weapon, and then took their investigation back to Russia once they left Hawkins, as the post-credits scene takes place 3 months later. But anyway, Season 4 will likely take place around the winter holidays, when the Byers and Eleven come back to Hawkins, and I already can't wait. But we're just scratching the surface on this season, so expect more analysis in the coming weeks. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss any future Stranger Things content I make. Tell me what you thought of Season 3 down in the comment section. Thanks for watching, see you next time.